We are less than 24 hours until tip-off is set to occur that the playoffs are going to be off to the races and the Sixers will be facing the New York Knicks. I'm back with my guy Cliff Jackson here to break things down. I want to talk a little bit about the series as a whole. So Cliff, to dive right into it, what's your temperature check right now? I'm getting a little anxious personally. I'm getting hyped up, excited. I feel the tension building. Where are you at right now?
Yeah, I'm definitely excited. A little bit scared, only because of Joel and the knee and the injury, and if he's going to be able to play physical with the Knicks, because we all know it's going to be another one of those scrappy, hard-fought series, and it's going to be really tough to win. But I am excited. I do think the Sixers can pull this out. I think if the Sixers are hitting on all cylinders and Joel is even half of his MVP form, I don't think this will be a close series, especially without Julius Randle. But that's just me and me being a homer. But we can talk about getting into details of what I actually think from a logical standpoint.
Yeah, I'm with you. And Cliff, to be honest, I respect this Knicks team. This is not a Milwaukee Bucks matchup where I'd be pounding the table saying Sixers in 4, Sixers in 5, Doc Rivers is a fraud, all this stuff. That I do have respect for this Knicks team. But I'll be honest, the mouth's been running a little bit too much for my liking from the Knicks fans right near. That I think there should be a little more respect paid that if there's no Joel Embiid injury, that we're talking about the Sixers in the 2 seed right now. And this Knicks team is good, but they're not a team that should be striking fear into anyone's heart. And to be honest, Vegas agrees that the Sixers, even as the 7 seed, looking like a slight favorite in this. So do you think that's deserved that the Sixers are kind of being considered a little bit favorites and that despite being the 7 seed, it feels like there's a little bit momentum towards that Sixers team? Do you think that's a good thing or does that scare you a little bit?
No, I definitely think it's deserved because everybody knows that the Sixers are rightfully a top 3 team in the East, and it's arguably the Sixers and the Celtics are the 2 best teams in the Eastern Conference, especially when fully healthy. Going against a New York Knicks team they're just it's just plain facts. They're undermanned without Julius Randle, and they're going to have to rely on Jalen Brunson so much for so much of their offense. And while they have a bunch of role players, the Sixers are just clearly the better team, right? They have the better players, they have the better superstars, and it should be a win. They should be favored in this series. Like I said, it's just going to be depending on Joel's health. Is his knee good? Can he operate at least 80, 85%? And can he be physical down low and impose his will on the Knicks to where you take away their toughness advantage? And then once they lose that, they're just going to depend on Brunson to do everything for them. And we already know Nick Nurse, the Sixers have the bodies to throw at Jalen Brunson, and he has the defensive scheme to throw at Jalen Brunson, to throw him off his game. He would have to average, I was saying he's going to have to average at least 35 to 40 points every game for the Knicks to have a chance. Yeah. So I do feel good. I know it's going to be very hard fought. It's going to be some low scoring games. I feel really good, man. I just think Joel is he's ready. He's going to be healthy. Well, not healthy, but he's going to be mentally there. I think he tried to, impose his physicality and his will a little bit versus the Heat, but they were in that zone. He couldn't really get the ball. I think he's going to definitely impose his will, and I think Maxi's going to have a great series.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on just about all fronts there. And to dive into a couple numbers I did want to pull up here. For starters, the highest win percentage of any team in the NBA this season, in general, was 78%, that, of course, being the Boston Celtics. The Sixers with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey on the floor, an 80.8% winning percentage this year, but also, to give the Knicks their flowers here, a 90.5% win percentage when OG and Brunson were both on the court. OG, of course, was kind of their all-in move at the trade deadline, and to be honest, the guy that I do expect to get the primary task of guarding Joel Embiid, my expectation is that they're going to throw OG as a body and then use both Hartenstein and Robinson as kind of roamers behind that. Is that the way that you think they'll go about it, is give OG the primary task and kind of have a floater behind that? What do you think?
I was actually thinking they would put OG on Maxey a little bit, just to show him some length, show him a big body, and they would just try to stick with Hartenstein one-on-one, well, not one-on-one, but stick with Hartenstein and throw a bunch of double teams at Joel. But I just don't think a lot of the teams notice that Joel has been a willing passer this season. So if they do want to go that route, I do think that he's going to pick the Knicks apart, which is something that I don't know if you know, but I would never have thought I would say that in Joel Embiid's career, that he would pick them apart passing-wise. But it's just what Nick Nurse has done to this Sixers team. So, and I don't want to discredit the Knicks at all. Like they're a really good team. I'm just, like I said, I'm a homer. We have Joel Embiid, so it's like my confidence is just here.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of my argument here, and again, I wish this was not a first-round matchup. This feels like at least a second round, even a potential conference finals type of stakes, that I do think these are 2 heavyweights going at each other right out the gate here. But Joel Embiid's still going to be the best player on the floor, even as good as Jalen Brunson is. And when you bring up Jalen Brunson, I love Jalen Brunson. He's terrific. He's a bulldog. He's an alpha. He competes his butt off every single night, and he's incredibly skilled. Purely one of probably my top 5 favorite players to just watch play, and a guy that I absolutely think is deserving of first-team All-NBA this season. But that's really it when we talk about this Knicks team. And specifically, I mean that from the offensive creation standpoint, that I do expect Nick Nurse to fully force the ball out of his hands, to be throwing blitzes at him, to having 2 guys to just make sure that Brunson is not the guy killing you. And when you look around this Knicks team, they have guys that can hit shots, the Dante DiVincenzo's, the Josh Harts, these other pieces that can step in and make an impact. But as far as just creating their own offense, it feels like it's just Brunson to me, that I think if you can put out that fire, this Knicks team is in a world of trouble. So how do you think they go about making sure that Brunson does not get going? Do you think it is with forcing the ball out of his hands? And who overall would you expect as kind of the primary defender to be tasked with that?
Yeah, so it's kind of weird the way Nick Nurse does play. He does kind of throw completely different bodies at you during different points of the game. Like we saw versus the Heat, he had Kelly Oubre on Terrell, and then he switched to Batum pretty much the entire fourth quarter, and Batum did a really good job on Tyler Herro. I do think it'll be a mix. It'll be a mix of forcing the ball out of his hands and then like kind of just putting a primary defender on him with kind of playing pretty much gap defense of not giving him driving lanes, right? And he's just going to have to work extremely hard for a lot of his buckets. So like I said, I think it's just going to be a mix. Just going to have him think constantly as he comes out, because you've seen it with his Raptors teams. Even with playing them, we all know how annoying it was to play them, just because the looks Joel would get, because it would make him think every single time down the court, and he had to use so much energy just mentally. I think that he's going to do that against Jalen Brunson, and especially without other guys that can create. They can, like you said, they can definitely hit shots, but other guys that can't create their own offense is going to be really tough for them to score. And we know the Sixers can lock anybody down when they put their minds to it.
Totally, and I do expect this to be an old-fashioned 80s type of score lines, the 89-87 type victories that I do think is going to happen in this game. And to throw a couple other stats for both these teams, that when their stars are on the floor this year, the Knicks this season, a plus 4.8 net rating, which is in the 77th percentile, but the Sixers, a plus 11.1 net rating in the 95th percentile there. Sixers also ranking in the 97th percentile in offensive rating. The Knicks just 54th in that category. In the half-court offense, the Knicks do operate with the 75th percentile, but the Sixers right at 96th there. Defensive rating, a slight edge to the Knicks, that they have 110.8, which is in the 88th percentile, but the Sixers not far behind, 113.1, which ranks in the 73rd percentile, and half-court defense, once again, a slight edge to the Knicks within the 89th percentile, but the Sixers not far behind in the 73rd, and just the overall record, once again, this being with the stars, with Joel Embiid, the Sixers are 29-7, and the Heat, or I'm sorry, this is looking at the wrong data here, but the point being here that the Sixers are locked down on both sides of the floor, that it isn't just this, like the Knicks, it feels to me that they can win the defensive-minded slugfest, but when you look at them actually having to go in a shootout, that it comes down to this Sixers team making the impact, that they can do it on both sides of the floor. And you mentioned life becoming hard for Jalen Brunson. Again, as much as I like the guy, it feels like every bucket is hard for him, that it is these post moves, these twists and turns, these cuts, these getting to his spot. My biggest fear, and where I could see things pulling apart for the Knicks, is if they get in the steady pick and roll where you're getting Joel Embiid in drop coverage and he can get to his mid-range spots. I just don't see a world where Nick Nurse allows that to happen. And also when we talk about the Tom Thibodeau offenses, or Tom Thibodeau teams in general, the amount of minutes that Brunson specifically has logged and this team as a whole, it feels like there might be a wall in sight for this team.
Yeah, I see. So, I talked about that last season, even though 2 seasons ago, even when I think they played the Hawks, it seems like the Knicks with the Tom Thibodeau team, they try so hard during the regular season. It's like they get to the playoffs and they essentially like burn out. And you can see that it's been a trend with all the teams that he's coached, and it was even a trend. It was even a factor last season. I told a Knicks fan earlier, I'm like, that's just what happens with you guys. Like, he was like, you really think that? Yes, we have proof that it happens. So for them to play a Sixers team that can get gritty as well for a full 7-game series, along with the minutes that they've already logged during the regular season, and hopefully that Sixers have a fresh, healthy Joel Embiid, I just think it's going to be really tough for them to stay mentally locked in for an entire 7-game series playing the way that they do. This isn't the regular season. This is the playoffs where teams they're focused on taking away what you do best. And this is all they're worried about. They're not worried about Minba in 2 nights, or they're not worried about the Boston Celtics in a night. They're focused on you every other day. So you're gonna just continue to see the same defensive looks, see different adjustments. It's never gonna be the same. It's gonna be a hard grind mentally on them. And I don't know if they can stand this.
Definitely. And the last point that I do want to hit on here is we are getting a couple quotes bouncing around that are making their waves on the internet that I did want to point out here. So we'll start off with Paul Reed here, the one that really riled things up. And Paul Reed asked about his kind of outlook between playing the Celtics versus playing the Knicks. And his quote, "We wanted the Knicks matchup. That's the easier team." Now, I do think this was doing him a little dirty as far as taking out of context. And if we want to call a spade here, that if you line up 100 NBA players, throw some true serum in them, but hook them up to a lie detector, 100 out of 100 are saying the Knicks there. But there were also a couple other quotes I did want to bounce off you that we had Isaiah Hartenstein talking about how Joel Embiid, quote, "he's going to seek fouls." We also had Kelly Oubre taking a little bit of a shot at Madison Square Garden saying, quote, "they're going to give celebrities those $100,000 free tickets just to be there and not care about the game." So all these quotes, what's kind of your feeling on it? Do you like that they're coming out? Do you like that there's a little fire? Or are all of these much to do about nothing?
I actually like it because, like, they're telling the truth. They're all telling the truth. It's just all coming out. It's like, all right, this is what the playoffs are. We're going to see you. Like I said, every other night we're seeing you. So this is just what the playoffs are. It's like a mental battle. We're going to go at it. It's competitive. And, like, who cares? Like, we all know that nobody wanted to play the Celtics in the first round. That's the point of the play, and that's why they played so hard in the play. We know that. They shouldn't act like it's some dig at them. They know that they're not as good as the Celtics. And also, what was the other thing? Kelly Oubre taking a shot at Madison Square Garden, right? So I even brought it up a couple of times. I'm like, the only thing the Knicks are known for is historical things happening against them. Madison Square Garden, just the Knicks being the Knicks. It's historical things happening against them. It's not the Knicks' actual franchise. So, like, that's my quote. That's how I take a dig at some of my Knicks fans. So it's like, whatever, but it's competitive, and this is the playoffs. We don't got time. I'm not worried about you in the middle of the season, and I don't see you for another 2 months. No, it's game time now. So we should all be like that.
Absolutely. And if it takes a quote to fire you up at this point of the season, then there's an issue already. That you should be ready to get up for this game regardless. And I do like that there's a little bit of bad blood brewing. That this does feel like it's going to be a classic playoff series. These teams having some true hatred for each other by the end. And that's what this is about, man. Enough friends in the industry. Enough all these guys buddy. Let's go at each other's necks for 7 games and see who's best. And that's exactly what I expect to happen. So before we hop off here, Cliff, what do you expect to happen? Then how does this series conclude in your mind?
I think the Sixers win in 6. I think the Knicks, honestly, they're still trying to get over the mental hurdle of never being able to beat Ben Simmons. So that's what's really going on here. We got to dig deeper. They've never been able to beat Ben Simmons in a Sixers uniform. So they're actually mad, and then he's not going on. So they're going to try to take their anger out, but they're just not better than the Sixers. I have Sixers in 6. And I think it's going to be I think it's actually going to be a Maxey legacy series, honestly. So
love it.
Where I'm at with it, bring them on.
Yeah, I'm exactly with you. I have the exact same thing. That Sixers in 6. I've been feeling it since the beginning. I do think it's going to be a hard-fought, drag-em-out series. It's going to be a playoff intensity basketball from an every-minute basis. But I do think the Sixers are just the more talented team, and I think people are kind of short-sighting that. For all the flaws, the past just mistakes and shortcomings the Sixers team has had, what has this Knicks team done to earn your respect or trust that they'll get it done in the biggest stage? That I get Jalen Brunson has had his moments, but the Sixers have been to the finals in a more recent period of time than the Knicks have, which is wild to think about in that. So I do think they're getting a little more credit than they should for that overall regard. And I do think that it is time for this Knicks team to be humbled. So we will see how this all plays out. Once again, game 1 tomorrow at this point in time. We'll be back in action reacting to that game specifically and all content coming out this series. Appreciate each of you guys tuning into this video. Make sure you're smashing that subscribe button, dropping a like, comment your prediction for the series as a whole, and we'll be talking with you next time right here on Sixers Digest.